Fort Park Property Management and Real Estate. We specialize in strata management throughout the Lower Mainland and all over actually in BC at the moment. And today's topic is going to be the top 10 tips for saving strata's money. And these are going to be very general. They're not going to be specific to any building or townhouses or apartment styles or commercial or whatever. They're going to be very general, but you can maybe apply them to your building, and hopefully you can, and hopefully you can get some good nuggets of advice out of this. So who are we? We guide strata councils with clarity, confidence, and care, full service, residential, commercial, light industrial strata management, and we've been doing this since 2008. And we always say that effective strata management isn't just about maintaining properties, it's about building trust through clear communication, proactive solutions, and consistent support. So what's the very first tip that we've got here for today is property management. So this one is obviously a big expense, and I recognize a lot of our clients here today, so thank you guys for joining us. Really, in terms of property management and strata management, there's a lot of different facets to it. And for smaller buildings and even larger buildings, you don't necessarily have to go with the regular standard full management package. A lot of stratas will choose to save some money and do certain things themselves, whether that's taking on projects, maybe it's a building repiping and they're taking that on themselves, or maybe it is just having the management company do certain things like administration or just doing financials or running the AGMs or things like that. So there's a lot of different options. It's not always one size fits all. And one thing you can always consider is paying council members for their time in lieu of paying a management company to do it. And it's probably going to be cheaper if you're having the owners or maybe even volunteers doing it, right? Maybe you've got an accountant that wants to do the bookkeeping and do the financial statements. Maybe you've got like a handyman or an electrician that lives in the building that wants to take care of a lot of the maintenance issues, things like that. So it's an area you can look at to maybe save yourselves a little bit of money, whether that's through paying people or through volunteers. Number 2 on the list is insurance. So insurance is going to be a huge expense for you. Usually it's your number one line item in your expense budget. And I'm really surprised at how often people just kind of gloss over it and they don't really pay that much attention to the insurance. It's definitely worthwhile to get a couple quotes. Sometimes it can be challenging because the markets can be frozen if you're with one broker and then the particular underwriters don't really want to be quoting against themselves. So they won't allow you to do that. But in cases where you can, I always recommend to go out and shop it around as much as you can. You can also look at increasing your deductibles to lower your premiums. So in many cases, maybe you have like a $25,000 water deductible or something to that effect. Find out what it is if you put that up to $50,000 or maybe $100,000. Of course, it maybe subjects the strata to the potential of more risk, but at the end of the day, maybe that risk is worthwhile if you're getting a significant discount on your premium. And you're not generally using it, right? And you'll know certain buildings use them all the time, but certain ones typically don't have a lot of water damage and things like that. So just something to think about. Next one is snow removal. Snow removal is another big item that we see in budgets. And it can be very, very expensive to have a professional snow removal company do the management of this. So, it can be in a big snow year, that can be a $5,000 or $10,000 expense quite easily. So what we've seen stratas do, volunteers will get together, whether they're owners or council members, they'll create a schedule. They'll invest in the tools, whether that's a snowblower and a shed or just shovels and ice and things like that. You might be able to get all that stuff for under $1,000. Or you can even hire a part-time caretaker to do that kind of stuff. And it's definitely going to be cheaper than your $5,000 or $10,000 that you might be paying for using a professional company. Next one is landscaping. So we've got DIY landscaping, pruning, mowing, gardening can be very cost effective. Again, if you want, your strata can invest in a lot of the basic tools like a mower and a shed and maybe a whippersnipper, stuff like that. Basic tools. We see a lot of stratas will have volunteers do this, or they pay someone within the building to do it. And usually you're not paying then someone's travel time and overhead to come out to the property and do that. So, I wouldn't recommend if it's really, really extensive landscaping that you've got, but if it's fairly simplistic and just needs to be cut every week or something like that during the summer, then that's probably not a bad option. Another option, just kind of speaking about landscaping, is to go to what's called more of a desert style, an Arizona style landscaping, low maintenance. We did this in one of the buildings where I'm on council, and it saved us so much money over the long run. We were always having issues with the landscapers and their scheduling and things like that. And we ended up just putting in like a drop cloth over all the flower beds and the planters, and then rocks on top, and like some plants that required very, very little maintenance. And it looks amazing. And, it's significant savings in terms of watering and just maintenance. And we've had that for probably, 10 years now, I think, at the building. It looks just great. So that's something you can consider. A little bit of cost up front to do that, but will pay off in the long run. Janitorial, again, this is one that you can bring in-house. We have a lot of buildings where the owners will volunteer to do the janitorial work, or they are being paid. And again, you're saving on the overhead, you're saving on travel time to and from the property. Or you can maybe have a part-time or full-time caretaker if you're a little bit bigger building, taking care of these kind of janitorial needs rather than having someone come in from the outside. Number 7 we've got on the list is waste management. Waste management is a big expense item. And it's one that I feel that stratas get kind of screwed over on a pretty regular basis. These contracts with these large waste providers are very one-sided, and they're not really in favor of the strata. They can be very, very difficult to get out of, and sometimes they'll auto-renew every 5 years, and you may only have a period of like 6 to 9 months prior to the auto-renewal to get out of it. And then if you don't bring it up at that time, then it renews for another 5 years, and you're kind of stuck in it. And even when you're stuck in a waste management contract and you think, oh, that's not too bad, I think we're getting a decent deal, the rates still escalate. They've got rate escalation clauses in there. They've got fuel surcharge clauses. So you can find, maybe at the start of the 5-year period, it looked pretty good. And by the end, you're paying 30% more than you were at the start. So they're very lopsided, and it definitely pays to have someone on the council kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb and, see if it's worth trying to get some quotes on at a certain time when it is up for renewal. And shop it around, just like everything, because you can get a much better deal usually out there. Not always, but very often. And you might even bring the incumbent, you might even get them to quote a little bit better if you threaten to leave them. So it's a very tight industry. There's not a lot of options out there. So just something to keep in mind. Next one is roof maintenance. So the roof maintenance is one that we see, like replacing your roof is a very, very significant expense. Generally, it's not going to be through your operating budget. It's going to be through a special levy, or maybe special levy and CRF funds. A small roof can be $200,000, and we're just redoing ours right now on our tower, and it's $1 million, just over $1 million. So it's not a cheap thing to do. If you maintain it regularly and do what has to be done, and pay maybe a couple $1,000 every year just to get things done, get any patches cleaned up, get it recaulked, and the flashings around the chimneys and things like that. Clean the drains so water's not pooling. Get rid of the moss and all those kinds of things. You can extend your roof life dramatically by, I would say, at least 10 years. And we've seen buildings that extend it by up to 20 years. So just something to keep in mind. I know it's overlooked very often because you don't actually see the roof on a regular basis. Not like, you walk in your parkade and it's dirty and you need to power wash it, right? But this is something that you don't necessarily see. So definitely worth getting on some kind of maintenance schedule with a roofing contractor. Next one is HydroFlush. And we've got I see you've got a question there. We're just going to save that for the end, and I'll get to that one first. HydroFlush, this is a really, really good idea as a preventative maintenance. Again, should be done every few years, maybe every 2 to 3 years, kind of depending on how bad the pipes are. But we've all heard horror stories, and certainly we have lived through quite a few horror stories where the sewers backed up and they get into the lower units. Sometimes they might go up even to the top of the building. This can cause a massive amount of damage in a very, very short period. And that water that comes out of the sewer line is usually very, very bad. So any flooring will get wrecked immediately. And if you've got hardwood flooring or any kind of really expensive flooring, it's going to get ruined. So again, a little prevention here, some preventative medicine. Get the HydroFlushing done. It's going to cost you a few $1,000s to do it, but it will save you money in the long run. LED lighting. So this is one that is a good idea. As you guys are replacing your lighting, as some of these maybe fluorescent fixtures kind of die out, the ballasts die and things like that, definitely recommend replacing with LED lighting. And you may want to even preemptively do this before your ballasts even die. It's going to cost you a little bit up front, of course, but in the long run, it is going to reduce your BC Hydro costs, and it will reduce them dramatically. Common areas like hallways and the parkades, we see a lot of buildings getting them put on sensors now, so they're off, except when a car goes by, and then they click on. So it's a really, really good idea to upgrade your LED lighting in your property, especially if you've got high hydro bills and lots of common areas. And then the number 11, this is the bonus one. We always like to throw a bonus in there, is don't always go with the lowest quote. I know in strata, it's very, very easy, right? When you're making decisions by committee, and you've got 3 quotes and you just look at them and say, yeah, you know what, they look kind of similar-ish. This one's, we're going to go with this because it's just the cheapest, which is sort of the default thing to do. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily going to save you money in the long run, because a lot of these cheap quotes, from what we've seen, they may not have the infrastructure in place that you need down the road. They may not have very good customer service. So for follow-up, any issues that you have, if things weren't done properly, maybe it's just a one-man show and you can't really even get to your building after that. And then are they even going to be around? You want to make sure it's a company that's got a good reputation, that has been around for a while, and they're probably not going to be the cheapest. But are they going to be around to take care of any warranty issues 5 years down the road, right? If specifically, I'm thinking about roofing and things like that, where you get some really long lifetime warranties, but it doesn't do you any good if that company is out of business in 2 years. So that is just another kind of one that we always caution our stratas to make sure that they are thinking about. So to sum it all up, you've got property management, insurance, snow removal, landscaping, janitorial, waste management, roof maintenance, hydro flush, and LED lighting, and then not always going with the lowest quote. So those are 10 things that you guys can do. And no matter the size of your building and the style of your building, that's probably something you can take away from that.